topics that I cover. Today's topic is a very unique one. Today's a topic that I love talking about. Whenever we talk about money, it's one of my favorite things to talk about. And it's called the 6 steps to cash in on the next recession. And before we do that, I want to ask all of you guys to do me a favor. If you guys have an interest, I'm going to send a copy of this book, Unshakable, by Tony Robbins, Unshakable. It's a great book. Ray Dalio's in this book. Alan Greenspan's in this book. And one of the things that Tony did is he went and found the top 10 financial people in the world, and then he actually branched that out to over 100 before Unshakable. So he has Money Master the Game. This book, Unshakable, is one of my favorites, and it talks about kind of a similar theme to what we're talking about here today. Also, Tony is donating all of the funds, the proceeds from this book, to Feeding America, which I think is a great cause. So I'm going to send a copy of this book to every single one of you, a copy of this book. Usually we cap it off. Anyone that does these simple steps, 3 steps before Friday, here's what I need you guys to do. So all you got to do is, number 1, is share this video. So share this video on your news feed. You share this video. Number 2 is you simply follow Kori Lee Official on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Again, follow Kori Lee Official. A lot of you guys are following me on Facebook, not on Instagram yet. I was a little bit behind the game on Instagram. So follow me on Instagram as well, Kori Lee Official. And then also, when you're done, send a text message to 313131. And first send a text to put Kori, and then send a text that says Unshakable. That'll let our team know to send a copy of this book to you. So again, share this video. Number 2, follow me on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube, Kori Lee Official. And then number 3 is send a text message to me. Send it 313131 is the number. And simply put Kori, hit send, and then Unshakable, and hit send, and we will send a copy. We'll obviously make sure you're following me. We'll send a copy of this book, Unshakable, to every single one of you guys first of next week. So again, we'll aggregate everyone that's done this between now and Friday. I'm hoping to send at least 100 of these books to you guys that are watching this, maybe even more. And when you share this video, also put in the notes when you share this video. Don't just share the video, put why they should watch it. And let them know that anyone that follows these 3 steps between now and Friday will get a copy of this book sent out to you first of next week. All right, so again, I'm looking for the chat window. Again, Caleb, Rachel, Sierra, Bree, Abrian are all following you guys on all social media platforms and letting me know if you have any questions or comments. So make sure you're saying hello so that we can see that you're on. I like doing roll call to see who's plugged into me as well. So first of all, let's talk about this topic, and I'm going to give you guys 6 steps to really cash in on the next recession or the next correction. And I covered to you, for those that are kind of layman, in layman's terms, those that aren't really plugged into the financial world that much. But this is one of the areas, if I have to pick 2 areas that regardless of your income, regardless of what you do, you have to master these 2 areas regardless if you like them or not. Now understand my personality. I hate paperwork with a passion. I hate documentation. I hate details. But my tax professional back about a decade and a half ago, almost 2 decades ago, came to me and said, listen, Kori, I'm going to make this in simple terms for you. How would you like to have an extra $30,000 to $40,000 a year by spending a few minutes every single day? And I said, sure. What are you talking about? He goes, well, I need you to document things and understand these 2 areas. Number 1 is finance, and number 2 is your taxes. You got to understand those 2 pieces because you're putting majority of your money into taxes, and it's not how much money you make, it's how much you keep. So I'm going to cover these 6 things with you guys today. In fact, I took a bunch of notes this morning. I want to make sure this is the most relevant content that I can share with you guys as of today. I actually reread a couple of books over the weekend to put some information together for you guys. And so stay tuned, sit tight, get ready, because I'm going to cover these things really quickly for you. But I'm also going to tell you these are the 6 steps, the most profound ways for you to cash in on the next recession. So first of all, I want you to understand something. Regardless of how you feel the market is today, we are going to have another recession, or I like to call it a correction. It's going to happen. We've had the longest bull run, second largest bull run ever in history. The first one was after the Great Depression. This is the second largest bull run. We have spent about 10 years now in a bull market, which means we're going to have a recession. My opinion, again, you take it as a grain of salt or not. By the way, I forgot my attorney wants me always to put a caveat here and a disclaimer here, which is I'm not a tax professional. I'm not telling you where to put your money. I'm not telling you what to do with your money. I'm simply giving you my opinion on what I do and the philosophies that I teach, and also the top 100 wealthiest people on the planet. So you can buy into it, not buy into it. This, again, is the guidance from the top 100 people on the planet. I'm like everyone else, is that if I want to learn something, I didn't master my finances until my early 30s. I learned how to make a lot of money, and I made a shit ton of money, but I didn't keep anything, and I didn't invest anything. So therefore, when I had a downturn in my career, it capsized me. I mean, it derailed me. And so if I can give you guys the guidance, and again, I'm covering something, a topic that, for the most part, we get people who are in their mid 40s, 50s, 60s who are really passionate about this because they're like, shit, I got to do something, right? But I want to specifically talk to those of you who are 18, 19, 20, 25, 30 years old, because the sooner you get this shit down, the sooner you understand this, and it's so much easier to do it when you're younger. It's easier to do it, number one, because of the habits, but number two, because you don't have to put as much money away to have it really compound on you. All right, so you want to get this down as early as you possibly can and create the habits that really create wealth. This is a piece you've got to get down. So number one about these 6 steps is you don't earn your way to a fortune. You've got to understand it's not about earning money. It's not about earning more. I was very good in my 20s. I could make $30,000 or $40,000 a month and spend $50,000 or $60,000. I could make $110,000 in a month and spend $120,000 in a month. Believe it or not, I was really good at spending money. You can't earn your way to wealth. 50 Cent, right? Remember his story, 50 Cent? He had a tip and invested into vitamin water and made about $400 million, and he now went bankrupt. You've got, what's his name from Pirates of the Caribbean, Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp has made over $750 million and filed for bankruptcy. It's not about making money. Now, making money and getting cash flow is important, but you got to understand how to make money. I brought this down because it's something that I don't talk about a heck of a lot, which I need to, which is no matter what your career is, no matter what kind of income you make, no matter if you own a business or you work for someone else, is you no matter what you do, you've got to find a system and plug into. And that's something that I subscribe to, is a system. If you learn this properly, a system, which you're going to learn this system in this book, Unshakable, for all of you guys that want a copy of that book from me. And in that book, you're going to understand this philosophy, which is if you spend 15 minutes a year, and I'm not joking, 15 minutes a year, you can learn a system to go on to autopilot that is where money becomes your slave. I had to learn this. I had to learn how to make money my slave, that even when that there's no moving parts to it, no employees to it, no headaches other than understanding and just diversifying, understanding where to put my money about 15 minutes a year. You got to find a way to get money working for you while you're sleeping and to learn this concept. All right, so no matter what you do, you've got to understand that you can't earn your way to a fortune. You got to find a way to have money to be your slave. Number 2 is don't try to time the market. I see all these day traders out there. I see all these people trying to time the market, and I'm telling you, it is stupid. And I'm going to prove this to you. If you look at Warren Buffett, who's one of the best, everyone by every nature will tell you one of the best investors of all times, and he says that the CNBC is nothing but the ability to take forecasters and fortune tellers and to make them look good. You have to realize something is we try timing the market because we see a correction, right? So I want you to remember this and don't forget this. Scared people lose money. So understand that every single year there is a correction in the market. Almost every single year now since the 1900s, so 119 years of history, and almost every single year there's somewhat of a correction. Now, first of all, what is a correction? Well, a correction, for those that want to know what a correction means, is simply when the market is doing something, right? It's going well, and you have a 10% to a 19.999, whatever the number is, percent drop in the market. When that happens, it's called a correction in the market. When it's over 20%, then it becomes a bear market or a crash. All right, so every year there is a correction that happens, and that correction again is anything from 10% to 19.999% is a correction in the market. Once it's above 20%, it becomes a bear market or a crash. So, for example, January of 2016 was a huge one. People, the market tanked to billions of dollars. There was a minor one in 17, then a humongous one the end of 2018, where there was about a $2.5 billion meltdown in one day. But what most people do is they pull out of the market at that time and they're not investing at that time. Or what some people are doing is they listen to my advice in the past about how to dump the money in the market when the market tanks, but you're trying to time the market. You're missing out on the market's corrections that are still happening. So I want you to think about this. This is actually pretty amazing. There was actually Bear Stearns, J.P. Morgan, and Schwab all did this study. The main two were Schwab and J.P. Morgan, a 20-year study. All right, now I want you to write this down if you're taking notes. If you want to understand why it's important not to be somebody trying to time the market to know when to get out and when to go in. So first, understand this. The market didn't take your money. You didn't lose 50% of your wealth in the 2008 recession. You didn't lose, I'll say this again, you did not lose half your wealth during the last recession. You only lost if you pulled your money out. You only lost if you pulled your money out. So this study, this 20-year study, said the S&P 500 gave you an 8.2% return. 8.2% return. So basically every 9 years you were doubling your money. Now let's say you think you're smart. And even the best financial people out there will tell you that they don't try to time the market. So if you simply in the last 20 years, you were not in the market, for simply 10 of those days. So 10 of those days where the biggest gains were. If you were out of the market simply 10 days out of the past 20 years by you trying to time the market and you missed those rises in the market, those 10 days, your return wouldn't be 8.2%. It would be 4.5%, almost half. Almost half the return on your money if you tried timing it and were simply out of the market during those big bull markets 10 days. Now, in the past 20 years, if you tried timing it and were out simply 20 days, so basically one day out of each year, the biggest bull run of that year, right? The biggest day of that year, so basically the 20 of the top days in the past 20 years by timing it, you would have a 2% return. You might as well not even be in the market because you're looking at inflation, you're not getting anything. And if you were out of the market 30 days out of the past 20 years, the best days in the market, you basically went negative. So my point to you is this, if I give you any advice, is do not try to be an expert. You look at Warren Buffett, you look at all the richest people out there, they will tell you, do not try timing the market. And Warren Buffett says something else which I love. He says, unless you believe America is going to go bust, invest in America. Invest in the stock market. And my favorite is something else, which is the next topic, which is diversity. Diversity. So the first thing you have to figure out with diversity is this. You have to make a decision that you are going to be an owner, not a consumer. Write that down. You need to make a decision to be an owner, not a consumer. How many of you guys have the brand new iPhone? How many of you guys have an iPhone or have a Samsung, right? How many of you guys own a part of those companies? If you do not, you are a consumer. You are not an owner. You want to own those companies. Own a piece of those companies. One of my favorites is the Vanguard Fund because of the fees that are associated with it. And there's also a website you can go to, which is America's Best 401k. You can see the fee checker to see what you're actually paying in fees to your retirement account. But I love the Vanguard Fund or anything that's the top 500 companies in the U.S. because what it allows me to do is invest in all the top companies because this is something else I'm going to warn you of not diversification. So depending on where you're at with your life and when you want to retire, if you're towards the end of your investment career, no matter how good of stock you go into, there are going to be times when that stock is going to tank 40 to 65%. So if you are towards the latter end of your investment in your life cycle and you need to have money coming out of that in a short period of time, let's say you're older and you've got maybe 10 years in the market, 5 years in the market, whatever it might be, is if you try putting all your money into one basket, one stock, whatever that may be, that stock may be doing well now, but if you're going to be pulling money out in a short period of time, you want to make sure you're diversified because there are certain times when no matter how good the stock is, it's going to tank 40 to 65%. That's according to the Buffett way, and I totally agree with them because I've seen it happen over and over again. So investing in the top stocks in America is a great way to do it, and I love, again, Vanguard Fund's one of my favorites that I invest into. I think you got to put like $3,000 in, and then you can put it whatever you want incrementally after that. Just so you know, I get nothing out of this shit. All these things I'm talking to you about, I'm getting by creating value in you guys and your lives and helping you guys learn what the things that I had to learn took me over a decade of people just drilling on me to get this down, to understand it's not how much money you make, it's how much you keep, and how to diversify your money. Diversify your money. I like diversifying as well, not just in the stock market. I like diversifying in other investments, like, for example, real estate. But in real estate, you have to be careful as well, because I've got friends of mine who invested a lot of money during before their last recession and lost everything. So if you can, diversify as well into what you're doing. So if it's in real estate, I want multifamily, and I also want to invest in real estate where I'm getting a fractional share of ownership, which I do some things with a group right now. Also, I think Grant Cardone's got a great program because it's not taking fees out of it other than like 3% to manage it, but there's not a fee for those investing and getting off the top of your investment. I think you've got to invest $5,000 right now, up to $10,000, up to $100,000, but you've got to put at least, I think, $5,000 the minimum right now in one of the funds he's in. You can go to cardonecapital.com. Again, I get nothing out of it. I'm just telling you it's a vehicle that I've pushed some people into as of late. I love the idea because you own a fractional share of a large property. And if you look at any downturn, for example, a recession, real estate like that does exceptionally well because people that can't buy a house, whereas if you go in and buy a house, for example, you want to flip it, if you got to flip it over a short period of time because in the recession hits, you're in trouble. Then you got to sit on it until the recession pops back up and you have another another bull market in order to sell the house. So I love being able to own fractional shares. But diversify your money into various assets, including owning companies. Number 4, what matters is putting a system in place. People always come to me and they say, well, Kori, I've got $10,000 extra dollars. I got $5,000. Where should I put my money? You just being a flash in the pan and taking a certain amount of money and investing it is not what it's about. That's not going to make it long term. You've got to put a percentage of your money into investments. You've got to put a percentage of your money into investments and have it be automated. Here's a good story because people think, well, I'm at a certain point in my life and, and what's it really going to matter? Or I can't invest that much. I don't make enough. There's a great story out there that I read. Theodore Johnson is his name. Theodore Johnson. This is back in the 50s. So I'm going to put that as a piece of understanding as far as what this is currently worth today. But he worked for UPS. He made $14,000 a year was the most he ever made. $14,000 a year for UPS, and he retired with $71 million. $71 million. Now you may ask, how the hell did he do that? Because he had a friend of him that did this shit that I'm talking to you guys about, and his friend came to him and said, listen, I can make you a fortune. I can make you wealthy. And Theodore Johnson said, well, how the hell are you going to do that? I'm making $14,000 a year working for UPS delivering. He said, because I'm going to put a 20% tax on your money off the top that you're going to pay, and you're going to invest that money. Now, you might say to me, well, Kori, I can barely survive. I'm struggling. How am I going to put 20%? As you know that my stance is 40% of your money eventually needs to go in investments if you want to make it happen. And the older you are, the more you got to dump money in. The faster you got to dump money in, the percentage-wise you got to dump money in. But here, let me ask you a question. You might say, how many? I want you to answer this question in the chat window. I'm gonna look for the answers here on what you guys are saying. The question is, how many of you guys right now could invest 20% of your money into investments? How many of you guys could take 20% of your money off the top before taxes, 20% of your money and invest it? And be serious about it. Tell me if you think that you can do this. Put 20% of your money in investments with what you currently have coming in and your current lifestyle and your expenses. Now, I will say this. Most people, they get to the end of the month, they have more month than they have money, and most people are struggling, and they've got credit card bills, everything else. So, but I'm saying this to you is if you want to retire wealthy, you've got to understand and create these principles. Some of you guys are saying no. JJ Cruz is saying 12%. He's putting pre-tax. All right, JJ, here's the deal. You can do 20%. You might say I'm fucking crazy, but I'm telling you this. If the government, tell me this is not true. If the government came to you right now and said, guess what? We're going to put an extra 20% tax on everything you make. 20% of everything you make on top of the shit you're already paying, we're going to dump another 20% tax. And you will go kicking, screaming, fighting it, but guess what you would do is you would adjust. you would find a way to adjust. So what I'm saying to you is if you want to get this principle down, at a bare minimum, you should be dumping 20% of your money into investments. And I suggest 40%. And I'm telling you, if you can't do 40%, raise your level of income. Find a way to do that. I'm going to cover that here in a bit. But raise your level of income if you have to. But you've got to put at least 20% of your money in investments. Warren Buffett, do a search on Google. I think I did this with Adam Mateo and Abrian. Is go on Google and type in Warren Buffett's wealth. Warren Buffett's wealth, and look at images, and you will see his money and how his money kept compounding for him, and you'll understand how powerful this is. He started with half his money. Half his money from the beginning went in investments. And the younger you are, the easier this is to do. If you're a bit older, it comes down to creating the principle and backing your lifestyle down if you have to. Maybe don't buy that car. Maybe do whatever you got to do. Don't take that trip. But you got to find a way to invest at least 20%. And my belief is if you're somebody who's 40 years old and more, you got to dump at least 40% of your money pre-tax and have it be automated, pulling off the top before you get to touch it. If you can touch it, you're going to use it. You'll increase your lifestyle. How many of you guys have not seen that happen over your careers? Is the same thing that let's say you were making 10 years ago, you're making half what you're making now, and you keep getting an increase in your income, and you just spend more. That's what human nature is. You got to pull it off the top to create the discipline to invest that money. But again, he put 20% in that turned into $71 million. He gave away $34 million before he died. And that's with $14,000 a year by putting 20% away. So number 5, compounding. You've got to start now. People say, when do I start? You've got to start right now, no matter where you are. Here's a great example of why it's important to start even when you're young and with your kids. You may have made the mistake and you're 50, 60 years old and didn't start this. I didn't do what I needed to do, and I waited till I was in my about 32, 33 years old. You got to start as early as you possibly can. You might say I'm 50 or 60. Guess what? You got to make a frickin' ton more money and start investing that money. You got to make more money so you can survive on less and actually keep your lifestyle wherever you need it to be. I'm saying the word need, not want it to be, need it to be, and dump your money so it's compounding for you and creating a legacy. But more importantly, teach your kids and your grandkids this stuff. By the way, Karen Moeller, you'd asked what Riley, my son Riley is 16, invests with. It's called Robinhood. It's an app called Robinhood. I've not messed with it, but he said he loves it. The thing is, it's something you got to teach your kids. Get the game Cash Flow by Robert Kiyosaki. It's a great game to play with your kids. But here's why it's important to teach them to do this early. If you take your child who's 19 years old, and you had them invest just $300 a month. So $300 a month. So $3,600 for a year. So you taught your kid that's 19 years old to simply invest $300 a month. And you did this, so again, $3,600 a year, and you did this until they're 28 years old. Once they hit 28 years old, they stop investing. So just that 9-year period of time, if they started young enough, when they're 19 years old, put $300 a month in, maybe didn't buy a car or whatever else, but saved put $300 a month off the top of whatever they made, and did that for 9 years until they're 28 years old, they would have it at 8% return, which is what the average market has been. Simply putting it in the market and sitting on it, is they would have $941,000, almost $1 million in the bank at retirement. But on the other hand, if you don't start until you're 29 years old, let's take somebody else who doesn't start until they're 29 and puts the same $300 a month in and does that until they retire, never stop investing it. So the first example, the 19-year-old until they're 28 put $50,000 in, basically that turns into almost $1 million. If they didn't start until they're 29 years old, did the exact same thing and never stop investing, so put about $180,000 or so into that investment, they wouldn't even hit $1 million. So people ask the question, when should you start? Start now. I see people all the time have this excuse, well, I didn't start, I'm 50 years old. That's bullshit. Grant Cardone's a great example. He started when he was 45 years old, really building his vision. He's in the 60s now, and he's worth almost $1 billion. You have the ability to do it. If you don't have the ability right now to back your lifestyle down altogether and be able to put, when you're older, if you're above 40, you got to put about 40% of your money in investments, in my opinion. And if you don't have the ability to, you got to find a way to do it. And that's number 6, is increase your income, increase your cash flow. The job you have, do you have a way to become more valuable? If you're in sales, you have a way to sell more and learn the skill set to sell more. If you're not in a position or a job where if you're capped, In my opinion, find a different job, but you got to find a way to create incremental value with the company you're with, to increase your cash flow, and then have a side hustle or something else you're doing to bring more money in, to stack cash and invest it, and stack cash and invest it. You got to be able to do that. Now, again, I know that what I'm telling you is not something you want to hear necessarily, but it's the truth. And I think you guys more would rather have me tell you the truth, which is if you are somebody who's just starting out in life, you're a youngster watching this, start now. Teach your kids how to start now, because you're setting themselves up for life. I love how people come to me when they're 50, 60 years old, like a deer in headlights, say, how the fuck did I get here? I've got nothing set aside. I'm derailed. I'm capsized now that I lost my job. When the next recession hits, we're going to have something happen, which we saw happen last time, and it happens every single time, which is the job market's going to get it's going to get more scarce. The unemployment's going to go up. Those that are underemployed is going to go up. And guess what's going to happen? Because the last time this happened, by the way, just so those that don't realize, I know we see on the news that we've got 8, 10% unemployment. What you forget about is underemployment, and what you forget about are those that didn't report in, which all that combined was around 20% in this country. Add the unemployed, the underemployed, and those who didn't report, you're looking at almost 20%. If you don't figure this shit out now, it's never going to happen. The question is when to start. You start now. Let me cover this really fast again. So number one, the keys to cashing in on the next recession is, number one, understand it's going to happen. We've been sitting here way too long. We're around 10 years. The average correction is every year, but the average recession is about every 5 years. We are overdue for another major correction. People always ask me, they think it's rocket science, how the wealthy get wealthier. I will tell you why. When they can buy everything at half off, because when the recession hits, that's when you double down on your investments. You got to have cash flow to do that. You double down on your investments in the market. You double down on your investments in real estate, because now you're buying everything on sale. It's not that hard to make money if you're buying everything at half off. So number one is you understand the philosophy you can't earn your way to a fortune. It's not about how much money you make, it's how much you can keep. Number two is don't try timing the market. Again, if you're out of the market, the average has been in the last 20 years, by every study out there, about 8.2% return on your money. So every 9 years, you're doubling your money every 9 years. If you try timing the market, you're out of the market just simply 10 days. 10 days out of the past 20 years by you thinking you're smart enough to time the market, and you've earned about half of that, 4.6%, 4.4%. If you try timing the market and you're out of that market 20 days, so basically 1 day out of the year, you're out of the market because you think you're smart enough to time the market, and now you're around 2% return on your money, which you might as well not even be in the market, because now, with counting inflation, you just didn't do anything. And if you're out of the market 30 days out of the past 20 years, you actually lost money. Don't think you can time the market. Next thing is you got to understand with the market is diversification. You got to diversify your money, so your money isn't just into one thing. Because again, if you put your money into Apple, you put your money into the big stocks, there's going to be a time in history when those stocks are going to tank 40 to 65%, depending. You got to know what's going to happen, depending where you're at, how much time you got in the market before you got to start utilizing that money. You can get bit pretty hard. So you've got to make sure you diversify your money into different investment buckets as well. Next thing is put a system in place that's automated. Don't think you can touch the money. You got to pull between 20 to 40% off the top going into investments. And again, every one of you can do it. If the government put a 20% tax, you will bitch. But guess what? You'd find a way to adjust. Find a way to adjust as early as you possibly can. And the last thing is increase your cash flow. Find a way to increase your cash flow. All right, so again, one last final thing is those that want to get a copy of this book, if you think there's some value to this, you want to get a copy of Unshakable sent by me directly to you. And again, all proceeds Tony's putting out for Feeding America, feeding millions of people. In fact, close to 1 billion people will be fed over the next couple of years. From that, all proceeds of this book go towards it. It's a great way for me to invest my money is in you guys. I'll give a copy of this book. All you've got to do is share this video, number one. Follow me on all social media, Kori Lee Official, mainly Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Number three is send a text message so we know you did this to 313131. First send KORI, hit send, then put Unshakable and hit send, and we'll make sure that you did these steps, and we'll send a copy of this book to you. Anyone that does this by Friday, we'll send a copy of this book. Appreciate you guys. Love you guys. Talk to you next Monday. Bye-bye.